can we talk about Soylent Green without spoilers?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think the whole movie is the spoiler.
Right.
There's really no point in talking about it without talking about the spoiler.
Today on Midnight Local, we're just going to talk about some bullshit. Soylent Green.
Soylent Green. You know, I've been wanting to watch this movie since we started this podcast.
That's weird.
I know it's weird.
A hell of a statement.
We watched this movie in high school, and I think because of how much it's referenced, I've like over-glorified it in my head.
Yeah.
But I couldn't remember anything about it besides the only images that I had is, of course, the end, the line that I think is the entire reason why this movie is famous and persists.
Yeah, I guess.
I think so, because it's just
I was going to say,
referenced.
is it famous and persisting? Like, I don't know that this movie persists.
You don't think so? Well, now maybe not, but I do think I wouldn't say persists, but I would say is referenced much more than people realize. Soylent Green is people.
It's people.
People.
You've got to tell them it's people.
Yeah.
It's people. So I was first introduced to this before I ever saw the movie in a Phil Hartman sketch on SNL that was about the many sequels to Soylent Green.
Are there many sequels? No, they're making a joke about it.
Yeah, I think they were making a joke about like Charlton Heston and like the 15 sequels to Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
Although I think he dies at the beginning of the second or third one, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even think I think he just like they killed his character in the beginning of the second Planet of the Apes. I'm trying to remember now, but I was never an apes guy. That's not my jam. But but yeah, like it was just increasingly absurd, like endings that were like that twist doesn't really land as good the second time around in the interview. And they're like, no, it doesn't. And it's just him saying, it's still people. And then like in the third one, it was like, also Soylent Red is people. It was just like again and again and again. It was just an excuse for Phil Hartman to do his Charlton Heston bit.
Got it. Okay. And I was first introduced to it in Buffy. There's a storyline where she's like got to get a job because their mom has passed away. Oh. And so she goes to work at the Double Meat Palace, which is just a burger joint in town. But there's some secret recipe to double meat. And of course, in the world of Buffy, well, it turns out that the twist is that it's not. But there's a moment in between discovery and what it actually is where we think it's people. And Buffy's running around saying, it's people, the burgers are people.
Does Xander drop the Soylent Green reference on the audience? That seems
no,
like
it's her. It's her running through the front of the house at the burger joint, telling people that. It's people. And I must have been watching that at the exact time, or pretty close to the exact time that I was introduced to this movie in film lit class in high school. So, which is probably one of the reasons that it stuck with me. I probably first saw it without knowing what the ending was, so maybe I found that interesting. Maybe my little baby brain was being introduced to like dystopian futures for the first time. Like for some reason, this stuck with me for years, and I've been dying to rewatch it to determine whether like it's worthy of sticking with me or not.
I mean, it is dystopian. It does a really good job of being dystopian as hell. So like the basic premise about this movie is that it is the year 2022, filmed in 73, right?
So just the movie came out in 73. It was PG, an hour 37 minutes, or hour 27 minutes. I think it's under an hour and a half.
137 is what I think I saw.
Okay, 137. $4 million budget. Was kind of a box office. I have 210,000 at the box office, which feels impossible to me. Because I've never seen this like described as a flop, but I looked it up
as the death of Charlton Heston's career. Because at that point, I think it would be. I don't know.
But then at 3.6 million, like I don't know, in rentals worldwide, maybe it took a while. Maybe it was slow burn. I don't know. Doesn't matter. It doesn't really matter that much.
Doesn't matter.
Dystopian thriller based on the novel Make Room, Bake Room,
which
and
has very little resemblance to this movie.
Oh, is that true? Okay.
Yeah, I looked it up before we recorded. His book is like, I don't think it involves, from what I've read about it, any conspiracy. Soylent isn't people in it. It's a neologism when you combine two words. It's soy and lentil. So there's steaks made of soy and lentil combinations, which by the way, sounds fine. I like a good lentil. You know what I like to do? I like to get a French poi lentils, and I cook those, and I do up some mushrooms and some seasoning and stuff like that, and then with some hot chili pepper flakes in oil, I'll fry up a couple of eggs, and I put that on top. It's very nice. Anyway, I can make you a very nice savory lentil dish. I tell you.
I think I've had your savory lentil dish.
You may have.
I had lentil soup
You'd
yesterday.
remember it. Somebody in a quote was like, no man ever got home from work and longed for a lentil, and I was like, not maybe the way you cook them. Let me tell you, I
beg to differ.
It's got to be the right lentils. You got to have the French poi lentils. They have a nice little al dente texture. The other ones turn to mush. I can't stand them. Anyway, basically the premise is that Charlton Heston, poor man's Kirk Douglas, is I don't understand how Charlton Heston had a career. I'm watching this movie and I'm like, do people think he's good? Is he attractive? I don't know what is going on with this guy. Like, why?
I think at one point watching this movie, Ray and I were like, people found really odd things attractive in the 70s, and we just sort of accepted that and moved on.
Well, yeah, I think that could have been it too, but I really do think it was just like, if you want Kirk Douglas, but you can't afford Kirk Douglas, try Charlton.
He had a huge career, though.
Kind of. Like, he did a lot of B-ish movies, to be honest.
Okay,
so,
all right.
He had a big career selling guns, though.
Oh yeah, he's our NRA guy.
He was the head of the NRA.
Was he?
Yeah,
okay.
or at least the spokesman for it. He's where you'll buy my guns from my cold dead hands from.
Got it. Okay.
He's the cold dead hands guy.
Good to know. Good for context.
Yeah. He's a detective in this nightmare future where overpopulation has really run rampant, which is why I wanted to talk about this movie. And he's investigating the murder of a very fancy rich man.
Yeah.
And it turns out to be an assassination in an effort to cover up the fact that, cue the clip, Soylent Green is people.
Yes.
In the future, all food is Soylent.
Mostly, yeah, unless you're like mega rich. So you've got, Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow, and they're telling you at the beginning of the movie that they're plant-based protein compounds. And Soylent Green is special because it's supposed to be plankton-based, like something about ocean. Yeah.
Plankton.
Well, and just to give you like a full scope of the overpopulation they're talking about, they tell you at the beginning of the movie that the population of New York City is 40 million.
Yeah, that's crazy.
In 2022.
But that the population of the world is only 7 billion.
Is that, did they specify that?
I think so. Well, in the novel they do, so I might be crossing things.
Got it, okay.
In the novel, it's 35 million people in New York, but like 7 billion people worldwide, which is like, I don't think you did this math right, because we have more than 7 billion people on Earth now, I think, right?
Oh, definitely, yeah.
I don't know the actual numbers.
Anyway, the actual population for reference of New York City in 2022 was 8.3 million.
Yeah. It's and actually that's pretty steady, actually. It's been like, I don't know, what is it, 6 million? It was like 6 million in the 50s. So
yeah, projection models have it at like 17 million by 2050, but we'll see if that pans out.
It's a long way off, you know. Yeah, 2050 is a ways off. I guess.
I mean,
25 years.
Yeah, it's not
Wait a minute, hold on a second. Jesus. Whoa, where'd it go? So I always like this movie. And we're going to do also Logan's Run. I consider them like in the 70s. And I'm going to say it. I'm going to put it on the heels of Silent Spring. There was what I would consider to be a trend toward Malthusian dystopian sci-fi. The idea that overpopulation is going to destroy the world. Mm-hmm. And so like Exhibit A of that to me is Soylent Green. And then the other side of that coin, which is like the exact opposite take in my opinion, is Logan's Run. You know, it's the anti-Malthusian sci-fi. Malthus was like this monk. I don't know. He was thank you.
He was an Anglican minister.
Okay, when?
Born in 1766, died in 1834.
And he was like, we got to kill everybody.
Well, so yeah, in 1978, he wrote The Principle of Population.
Hold on a second. Not in 1978.
All right, some minor dyslexia there. In 1798, he wrote The Principles of Population.
A big slight difference.
What this was the beginning, or he lived during the Industrial Revolution, the beginning of the Industrial Revolution.
1798, sure.
I think there was a big concern that, birth rates were increasing and things like vaccines and better medicines were decreasing death rates amongst children and life expectancy amongst the population. So
life is getting just too good.
Yeah, or he just wanted to use it as an excuse to say, stop the poor people from having more babies and don't give them government help.
Right, exactly. Malthusian sci-fi posits that the population is too great, overpopulation is the problem. And I think it comes from Silent Spring to some extent. Certainly I would regard, this is very controversial. Silent Spring is a book that comes out, I got to look up what year this is. Late 60s, early 70s.
Well, and while you're looking that up, another key point of this is that while the population gets bigger,
62, actually,
food becomes scarce.
Right. As the population becomes bigger, food becomes scarce. And then you end up eventually with Thanos killing half of all life in the universe. Which makes no sense, by the way. That in that context of that movie, in the movie, it makes no sense whatsoever. In Avengers Endgame.
Why?
Well, because he has the Infinity Gauntlet, which gives him total control over everything. So he could just double the size of the universe. He could just solve the food and energy problems and decide that all of that is addressed. Nobody ever eats anymore. You don't need to eat, or food is just magic. It just appears. He could just rewrite the rules of the cosmos, but he chooses to randomly kill half of everybody in the cosmos.
So they should have named him. They shouldn't have named him Thanos. They should have named him Malthus.
Malthus. Well, yeah. But in the comic book, it makes sense because Thanos is insane and in love with death, like Lady Death, like the Grim Reaper. He's trying to bone her. And he figures if I kill half of everybody, she'll be really impressed with me. Which makes sense.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. That's not usually how chicks work, just so we're not,
Yeah, well, I don't know, though. Chicks that love death, maybe.
Yeah, maybe. Okay. Yeah,
I'll give you half the population, baby.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Okay, that's funny.
He's trying to jump her bony bones. So, yeah, Silent Spring came out in 1962, and it's a book that's primarily about DDT is going to wipe out all of the planet.
DDT is going to wipe out the entire planet. What is DDT?
So DDT, and I don't know the name of it, but DDT was a pesticide that was being used really widely spread in the 50s and 60s and maybe even before that. If your parents or grandparents remember riding their bike through the fogger that would come around to do mosquito control in the summer, the truck that just dumped DDT everywhere.
Yeah, there's a lot of cancer in my family, and there's a lot of talk of DDT being the reason for it.
Could be. It could be. But it turned out that it was really maybe bad for birds and things like that. And so she wrote this book about Silent Spring, about there won't be any birds, there won't be any insects.
I do know this. Yeah, okay.
But there has been since then some criticism lobbied at the book for a couple of reasons. That mower is so fucking loud, it's insane.
Now I hear it.
It's insane. What are they doing? So there has been a lot of criticism towards that book, and I just read that some of it looks like was tied to the tobacco industry. But regardless, I mean, it's now kind of regarded, I think, as sort of misguided environmentalism in the way that the anti-nuclear campaigns were of the 60s and 70s.
I mean, was she basing this off of any studies that were done on effects to birds and bees?
Yeah, I don't know. We're way deep.
Or was she just anecdotally?
Yeah, exactly. So I have seen criticisms of her that I haven't traced back. I haven't followed the money on this yet. So maybe they're bad criticisms, but they seem like they struck a chord for me, which was that she was kind of a Malthusianist, because DDT is pretty vital, or it was, pesticides were pretty vital worldwide to preventing disease and reducing infant mortality and keeping people alive. And there is something of an argument that well, either people can live in this place or they can't because they have malaria. And I don't know. I've seen it kind of connected to this sort of thing in the past. Maybe I'm not drawing these lines correctly. The movie is very strongly in the camp of there's just too many goddamn people.
If we keep going at this rate, we will
destroy the planet.
Spark our own own demise.
Ecocide, death of the planet is what they call it in the wiki.
Yeah, in Soylent Green, there's also a lot of greenhouse emissions, climate change. Like that is a big part of why this has all gone to hell.
The world is too hot.
Right. The crops are not surviving because the world is too hot.
Because it's watered in Brondo.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So the movie opens on a scene in sort of a very dark, dingy apartment where Saul and Charlton Heston's character Thorne, Detective Thorne, are living together, which makes sense in this world because you're lucky to have any space to yourself at all.
It goes a little bit beyond that, I think. I mean, like, I was looking to see if they were romantically involved. They're not, I don't think. You don't think so, do you? I don't.
No, I don't. But it does not. They don't go out of their way to say that's not possible.
Right.
Like, you know, I don't think they are. I think it's a father-son type of connection.
I think if you read between the lines, Saul is assigned to him by the police.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he's a police book. It's a job. And like they talk in the movie at one point, like, Saul's too old. We got to get you a new book. I'll get him out of your apartment in the next few days. And he's like, no way, man. I like Saul.
So it's like, a father-son partnership. Yeah. Really, like police partners relationship.
Yeah, Saul's job. And it also is implied, I think, too, that like having a job is huge in this setting.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
he says that there's like
not risk my job.
Yeah. He says something like there's like 20 million men out there who would want my job or something like that. Yeah. So, and they have a place to live where as soon as they leave their apartment, you watch them crawling over everyone sleeping on the stairs. There's people sleeping on the streets. There's people absolutely everywhere.
Except sometimes, which is one of my problems with this movie, but like it's a little inconsistent with that.
I was noticing that too. And then there is a curfew that's enacted at some point where everyone's supposed to be chased off the streets. They don't tell you where they go, but they're not allowed to be in the city anymore.
Yeah, where do they go?
So, I don't know. Shelters outside of the city. I don't know why, if you're chased out of the city, you would ever come back into the city during the day. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like they actually, I don't know, subways, whatever. We never see a subway in this movie.
No. The place where we see everybody sleeping is a church that doesn't function as a church. It functions as a shelter. Yeah.
Too far. One of my favorite things about this movie is the opening title sequence. Just the edited photo montage. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. It's nice. Super well done.
It is. Yeah, it's nice. I'm running it right now over us talking about it.
Super effective. I really like it. I like the use of the music, the rhythm, the flash cutting and everything like that. It's fun.
Yeah, the build of the music. They set the tone and the problem in a good, I mean, it's 30 seconds to a minute at most.
A good title sequence is a good thing, though. Like, like a Saul Bass title sequence, which this is not, but like they can do a lot for the movie.
Is there a voiceover pulling you in, or is it just the montage, the title screen?
Yeah, it's just pure visual storytelling.
It's not like, in the year 2022, we have run out of food.
Yep.
The planet is overpopulated.
There is like a title card that explains what year it is and the population. But like, the exposition is basically done by way of that montage. And I really like the lack of exposition in this movie. Like what the police book, like that's not a real thing right now. Like that's a thing in this setting. The furniture girls, like you have to connect all of that. Calls them
furniture. Yeah. You don't sit around explaining it. We're sort of setting the scene. We get a news clip. They're watching TV. That's where we learn what Soylent red, yellow, green are, that's the food they're living on. They have a discussion about the old times. Saul clearly was alive in a time where it wasn't dystopian, where food was available, the trees were green, the sky was blue, and he longs for this time period. But Charlton Heston's character has no memory of it. So he was born after whatever happened, which happened quite quickly.
That's what I mean, like there's a lot of huge logic leaps here. And like, no, sorry. Like, first off, I mean, there's like 25 years, 30 years tops between them. Like,
I was doing some math in my head and it was like, if we're in the year 2022, Charlton Heston's like us, our age, born in the 80s, early 80s.
Right.
And Saul, if he's 20 years older, was born in the 60s.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
so I think the stupid idea is that, well, right now I'm looking out my window in the 70s, and if this started happening right now by the 80s, everything's gone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Unless Charlton Heston's playing a character who's like 19 years old or something.
He's 40 at least.
At least 40. He's a 45-year-old man for sure.
Yeah. I think when he made this movie, he was in his 50s.
Wouldn't surprise
50s,
me. Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. He was born in the 1920s.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I'm going off of memory here, but Edward G is probably born in the 1890s. So, like,
yeah, I mean,
30 years.
So worth mentioning, the guy who plays Saul, this was the last of his 101 movies he made in his lifetime.
Edward G. Robinson, a legend. And we could do a whole pod about him, honestly.
Yeah, he sadly died of bladder cancer like 30 days after they finished shooting this film.
Yes, and I was just reading that he was the only one on set who knew that he was dying.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and Heston had a lot of really nice things to say about him. And like the last thing he ever shot was him going into so at some point later in the movie, I don't know if we're going to do this beat by beat, but Saul eventually decides to go home, and he keeps making references about it throughout the film, and eventually you find out that it's like a state-sponsored suicide program going home.
Yes. If we broad strokes this, you can broad strokes it. Like someone is hired to kill one of the CEOs or board members at the Soylent company.
Yes.
This person has a secret that clearly they are on the verge of spilling or are disinterested in keeping any longer.
Right. Crisis of conscience.
Yes. He's rich, so we're introduced to the Chelsea apartments where all the rich people live.
Chelsea West, right?
Chelsea West,
where
yeah.
SVA had its thesis film show.
Yeah, exactly. Where the SVA theater is. The apartments come with young, beautiful women for the male occupants.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that the most interesting things about this movie is less like the plot, and then it is like some of the ideas in it. You know, like these little, that's an idea. Interesting.
Right. So Charlton Heston goes to this apartment, and I actually adore this scene where he's just sort of walking around looking for evidence, but he's just nakedly
shit. Corrupt. Just everything he can take, he's taking. I love it.
Takes a pillowcase, it's just putting food in it,
soap,
whiskey, soap. Like, no one's stopping him, and it makes a little bit more sense. At first, I didn't know exactly who she was and that she came with the apartment.
Yeah. But
the idea is like, this man is dead. There's no owners of any of these things anymore.
Right.
The owner of all of this is gone.
Right.
So he's just taking
everything. Yeah. Yeah. There's actually a point about who gets the death benefit at one point in it, and that there's no next of kin, and the bodyguard kind of expects that either he or the furniture girl, whose name is Cheryl, will get it, or at least split it or something like that.
Or it just stays with the apartment. So it becomes, I
don't think it would become the next rich guy's money. But
well, if it stays with her, she stays with the apartment. The belongings would stay with the apartment.
Oh, no, I think that there was like literally like a cash payout. There's a line where the bodyguard is like, what about the death benefit? And he goes, that's pending, the investigation and stuff like that. And he kind of gives him a sharp look, and the bodyguard's like, well, I was thinking of Cheryl.
We also come to understand that the body, there's no burials or anything like that anymore. They're going to take the body and dispose of it in some factory somewhere.
The waste disposal. And Cheryl has this line about like, I remember when my grandmother died, there was a ceremony. And she's like, so confused.
Ceremony and we buried her.
Yeah. So much has changed. It's insane. Like, just basically it must have been like overnight. Like, all right, we'll talk about the logic in this movie in a second. It's not really important, but I also think it's important.
Yes.
Because
I think this movie isn't successful completely, and I think that's the reason that while you're watching it, and I imagine while you were watching it in the 70s, you're kind of like, okay, I'm buying it to get to the end, but you're like having to consciously buy everything that it's laying out.
I don't know. I wonder about that, because I think this idea of the Malthusian nightmare sci-fi was one that took hold. I mean, I remember like learning about overpopulation in the 80s in school, the term overpopulation, which we now regard as being like, that's really fucked up. Like nobody did any analysis on the idea that like there's just too many fucking people.
Agree. I totally agree with like the underlying fear keeps this movie from being completely forgotten to history.
Yeah.
The thing that makes it not one of the great movies is that
Charlton Heston.
When you're watching, when you're having to buy like the beat, here's one that stands out to me and one that I remembered from watching it because I thought it was silly in high school and I think it's silly now when they are scooping the bodies up and people up with these giant scoopers, which comes a little later. It is hard to buy. It's almost comical.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're like, you're sitting there maybe as a person who is like, this overpopulation thing really scares me too. I'm excited to see a movie about it. And then those scoopers happen. You're like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, it just takes you out of
the scoops are coming.
That
the scoops.
It's appealing to. Right. It's
stupid.
I
mean, you can see immediately that they would be overpowered within seconds.
Yeah.
Like in the face of that crowd. There's nothing there stopping people from, I'm stealing the scoops, you know?
Right. The scoops. And then they're like, the way they come down, it's just like, you know, someone's going to be under it.
Amazingly, only one person gets crushed.
Yeah, only one person. But
that to me is a surprise. So
conveniently, the person we need crushed in that moment. So the rest of the movie is like this cat and mouse of the company trying to get rid of anyone who might know what's going on, and Thorne and Saul trying to figure out what is going on, why these people are being killed.
And the police trying to keep Thorne from doing the investigation under the pressure of the Soylent Corporation and the governor.
Sort of. They're not like that heavy-handed about it. He's just very easily persuaded.
At the end, that murder guy is sitting in the police commissioner's office telling him, like, get this guy off the case.
He is, but he's... I feel like they're so overwhelmed that, like, anyone more powerful than you coming in and saying, like, you don't need to investigate this. The guy's like, fine, get rid of it.
Yeah,
other problems.
Doesn't need to be a lot of pressure.
We're not going to solve these problems anyway. Like, they're trying to plug an unpluggable hole, and this guy's life is a misery of constant killing and riots and unfixable problems.
I mean, to some extent too, you have to, but like, this is also like one of those things too, where like, why are they even investigating murders?
So yes, of
like
course.
Why?
And like,
he said there's 250 murders a day, and it's just like, yeah,
that's exactly what I mean. It's like, at this point, a police force is pageantry.
It reminds me of in Game of Thrones, or actually in A Song of Ice and Fire, where basically like a lot of the geography of Westeros, like the wall is 300 feet tall and 89 miles long, and like the size of the kingdom. GRRM, George Martin, later was like, I didn't really know what those numbers would mean or imply for my setting. Oops.
That's great.
Yeah. And it just feels like 220 murders a day, huh? That's just like a number you just made up because like you did not think about like, that's crazy.
This movie is riddled with that. That is this movie. It's like, yes, I agreed.
40 million people in New York City.
Exactly.
What the fuck?
Yes.
Are they standing on each other's shoulders?
And I guess that's what I mean, where I'm saying like the underlying fear is there, but like every time you start to buy into the movie a little bit, it kind of reminds you why you can't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's the thing too, is that like, obviously the rich motherfucking guy's got this ridiculous apartment, but like some detective cop and his book buddy like also get like their own personal space. It's
small. It's like, I don't know. I kind of buy that because I feel like in my brain that space is like the size of this bedroom.
It doesn't
have running water. It doesn't have electricity. Yeah. They got all these people sleeping outside. However, all those people sleeping outside, you would have to assume one night they're just going to overwhelm the space.
Exactly.
You wouldn't be able to hang on to it.
No. I mean, did you ever...
Maybe he's got a gun and they don't, and that's how it all works. Like,
just those 6 shots. I got those 6 shots.
That's true.
Yeah. Did you ever go on the tenement tour downtown?
Yes, I have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, though, is that like his place is as nice as a tenement.
Yeah, sure.
Which isn't much, but like a tenement would have 12 people living in it.
Sleeping in it.
Yeah, and he's just him and this guy. And they'd be working there in it'd be a sweatshop too, Well,
he doesn't have a wife and kids.
It does not seem that anybody marries in this setting.
To me, the darkest moment of this film is when he's walking down the street at some point and there's just a child screaming.
Oh my God, I can't watch that.
This child is like tethered to her dead mother.
Dead sister, I believe.
They don't say.
The other one looked so young, but maybe it was her mom. I don't know.
He picks her up and untethers her and takes her into the church, which is how we're led into this church. And we realize that the church is this. And you meet the priest who's just like lost his mind by being overwhelmed by trying to help in any way. He's lost his mind by trying.
He knows that Soylent Green is people.
That's what we come to realize.
It starts out like, oh, this guy's just worked to the bone. But by the end of the conversation, you realize, no, his mind is exploding because he realizes we're eating people.
So the man who was murdered, and the reason he goes to talk to him, had given his last confession to this priest and told him what he knew. So Charlton Heston, Thorne is like, he's really into the bodyguard being the guy who killed him. He's convinced. He's chasing down that angle for a while. We get very nice scene between him and Saul where they eat all the food he took from the apartment and
the steak,
the beef.
Is it beef?
He says beef.
I know. But is it beef?
Keeps saying beef.
Like they're already soylenting up. You know what I mean? Like look, that might be a man steak right there.
Oh, I see. That's what you're saying. Possibly. You get the idea when the beef is introduced to you by the ritual.
It's beef.
Sure. It who cares? Man steak. He also obtains from this apartment these books, these files on Soylent Green, which is what Saul uses to discern that it's
oceanographic research.
Yeah. And like really all you need to know is this all leads them to the ending where Saul. So for me, not for Ray, but for me, there was like a missed beat in Saul going from talking to this council of people where he's like, you agree what's happening here, right? And they're all like, yeah, I agree what's happening here. And he's just like, all right, time to die.
Yep. He does not give any information at all to our guy Thorne. But like that's the thing, right? Like this is the problem with a movie like this where they had no third act. Because the only thing they have for the third act is revealing to the audience that it's people. Mm-hmm. And so you have to avoid that until the end of the movie because nothing happens after that. Like if that could start your third act in a better script, and then what? And it might even not be much, you know what I mean? But like the final thing in the movie is that Soylent Green is people. So he can't go home and write a note, by the way, Soylent Green is people. Here's the evidence, off to die. He can't do that. And like,
but he does leave a note. I'm going home. He leaves him a note. He just doesn't. He
doesn't give him any information.
No, it just says, I'm going home, Saul.
Yeah, and if Thorne had been like 4 minutes later, Saul would have been gone and he'd never gotten that information.
Right. And he doesn't get it from Saul.
Who does he get it from?
Thorne he knows what the exchange is. He immediately knows where Saul has gone.
The exchange, or you mean home?
The exchange, wherever he's going, the assisted suicide.
That's facility. The home. That's home. Exchange.
Oh, that's called home?
Yeah, that's going home.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And so he keeps talking about going home. Where's God? God's at home. They keep talking about home all the way through the movie.
I just figured that meant dying, yeah.
Yeah, kind of both, all of that stuff. The exchange is that tiny little room with old people and books.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you got to go check the exchange, and that's the exchange, where they exchange information.
Supreme exchange. Right, that's right.
And the Supreme exchange will go public with this information if they have proof.
Right. Okay.
Sorry.
So the assisted suicide facility is, okay, that maybe it's called home, maybe that's just how he refers to it.
Yes.
So he knows immediately, he goes, he accepts it. He accepts that Saul's wants this.
Sure.
And he speaks to him. They say goodbye. He watches him. He sees what Saul knows.
And he's not supposed to.
Presumably.
That shield is there so that nobody who works there can see that. Right? Because like they go in and he's like, no, man, you're not allowed to open that. He tells this guy, if you don't open that fucking thing, you're going to die faster than him. And then they open this blast shield that prevents anybody from seeing the film reel of the, what the world used to be like. Huge logic hole here, by the way. right?
Which is?
Well, the minute that door is shut, they could have just shot him in the head.
Sure.
Like, this is a very nice thing for this setting to do, you know? You see all these people coming in off the street. They all seem regular people. There's no guards checking IDs or anything like that. Yes, sir, right away. You know, they're eager to get people away. They have this huge space given the setting. You get a big private room. We're going to give you these beautiful people are going to feed you this wine, and then you're going to relax. And you're going to get a full 20 minutes, I guarantee it, where you can watch and listen to your favorite music, and you're going to watch this film of the way the world used to be. And we're going to build it so that nobody else can see it because it would ruin them. You know, we can't let all these people who don't know see that.
Right.
Nobody knows what the fuck is going on in that room. Nobody knows what's going on in that room. So they actually built this nightmare society, this brutal fucking, we've got the scoops coming society.
Right.
Builds
through on their
promise. Builds this beautiful, like, you know, euthanasia machine that nobody's even gonna be able, nobody can walk out and say, let me tell you, home is great. I went and did the home experience. There's no word of mouth.
Right. They could just cattle prod you and be done with it.
They're going to tell you it's great. And then when you walk in,
yeah.
You're going to love it. It's fantastic.
So
right this way, sir.
Left it's a great, beautiful plot point for us. It's a pretty scene. That's why it's there.
Yeah, no, exactly. That's the movie. Right, exactly.
Right. This drives him to chase Saul's body, essentially, to see where it goes.
Yeah.
And it goes to a factory.
Well, no, Saul does tell him.
He does?
Yeah, and this is why you missed it. The transmitter from the booth that he's in to the dying room, it goes staticky, and the guy tells him, put the headphones on. So again, we are needlessly avoiding the audience finding out what our main character knows.
Because it's the punchline of the movie.
Exactly.
Right? It does almost become comical. It's like, I would imagine a lot of people had it figured out by this point.
Yeah.
But maybe not.
I don't know. Well, numerous times in the movie, they like combine the words waste management and like Soylent factory. Like they show up in the same sentence numerous times. Like the security at that place will be buttoned up as tight as a waste management facility or a Soylent factory, you know, like that.
Mm-hmm. Goes to the factory, gets in a fight with one of the factory workers.
Oh, he kills a few people in there.
Yeah, and then, I mean, the movie has to take you as far as him, like, falling on a conveyor belt of Soylent Green to just make sure, okay, this is what's happening.
I was waiting for it. I was, like, hoping you'd see, like, a conveyor belt that, like, bodies come in this side, Soylent goes out that side.
Yeah, right. It's almost that on the nose that he, like, sees this conveyor belt and looks and goes, Soylent Green is people? Like, it's just, like, it's so heavy-handed.
Also, I've got proof, he says.
Yes.
What proof?
So I saw it.
Yeah, I know. I've got the proof.
His word.
Yeah.
So he leaves the factory and runs back to the city, trying to find someone to tell. That's the other thing. He's like, who are you going to tell? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, he was going to go to the exchange because the exchange has the authority to go public with this if they have proof.
I see. And then he calls his lieutenant. His lieutenant comes to find him.
He realizes that the place...
He gets shot.
There's guards waiting to kill him.
Right.
And so he tries to get the police to come and help him. He ends up having to fight these 4 guys. He gets shot straight through, back to chest, exit wound and everything, and still manages to put up a fight because this man is Charlton Heston. Fights the bodyguard to the death, and then while he's being hauled away on a stretcher...
he goes into the church where there's tons of people around him.
I actually love this scene because of like the callousness of it. Like they're just like throwing, like living people are just being like 3 high bunk beds are collapsing people onto people. Like this to me is one of the more accurate depictions of like, oh yeah, they followed through their logic here, you know? Yeah, and then of course he tells the police chief, whispers it, and then he starts screaming as they haul him away that Soylent Green is people, and that's it. Freeze frame.
That's it.
Freeze frame on his bloody hand reaching upward.
Does someone say they'll be breeding us like cattle for food?
He does. He goes, yeah. Right now it's just dead people, but soon, what's next? They'll breed us like cattle for food.
Which is why this. Yeah, I guess you're right about the home place, the assisted suicide place, is that like they don't have to be so nice about it, but the reason it exists is it's like very easy way. It's just like people are walking in, we don't have to go get them, they'll come to us.
The scoops, Where are they going after they get scooped?
Right. Yeah,
Probably straight to the Soylent factory, right?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch the scoops operating, those people are going to be injured badly after getting scooped and thrown.
Although there's enough of them that would be fine enough to just crawl out of the back of that truck.
The last layer, the bottom layers of scooped people, they're fucked. They're fucked. I mean, like, first they got to fall all the way onto that metal bottom, and then they got to get, it's brutal. That's some nightmare shit. Some of the ideas in this movie are kind of cool. Like, not cool, they're awful, but like the furniture, you know, it's like a setting that's severely overpopulated, and we know that people are confused by why would somebody go to church, and like, you know, that comes up, like, he goes to church, what for? To talk to a priest? Like, so I think that in the 70s mindset, right, like, this is like moral degradation. Society is truly falling apart. What does anything even mean anymore? And so actually, you never once in this movie see anybody in a committed, loving marriage relationship.
You do not. No.
You only see furniture.
Saul and Thorne.
Yeah, that's as close to people liking each other as possible. Yeah.
And they say at the end, very poignantly,
I love you.
The last thing, I love you, is what they say to each other.
Yeah. Maybe.
And not like in an I love you man sort of way, and like a I love you.
I think it was like a father-son kind of thing.
Yeah. No,
okay.
But I just, not in like a love you buddy sort of way, like in a very serious I love you.
Yes.
I love you too.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. In a platonic way. Just so we're clear, Charlton Heston, not gay. There's if you watch Celluloid Closet, he's in Spartacus, Heston, and there's this great scene with him and from Some Like It Hot. I can't think of his name right now.
Tony
Curtis. Yeah, it's Heston and Curtis, and it's a hilarious scene because like people had always read it as being, I guess, gay coded, but apparently the director flat out like told Charlton Heston, like, okay, we're going to prepare for the scene. It's in the bathhouse. And this is your buddy, General so-and-so or Senator so-and-so. You guys haven't seen each other in a while. Good friends, yada, yada. And then he tells Tony Curtis, you two were lovers.
I've heard this story before, yeah.
It's very interesting to watch how it plays out. And Tony Curtis is kind of flirting, and Charlton Heston's just like, yeah. Yes, my buddy. Oh man, I just remembered also there was another great Phil Hartman plays Charlton Heston bit, which was the audio tape for Madonna's sex book. She put out a book called Sex. I think it was called Sex, or maybe it was Erotica or whatever. And it was Charlton Heston reading the audiobook of it. And you get like great lines where he's like, I like my vagina.
I'm surprised he agreed to read that.
Well, it's not. It's Phil Hartman doing Charlton Heston.
Phil Hartman doing Charlton Heston. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah, no, Charlton Heston had no sense of humor about himself whatsoever.
Well, that was one of the pieces of commentary I read about this film, was that like it was a departure from his normal stoicism. Like people felt he gave more of a performance in this movie, where usually he's just like deadpan.
The furniture.
Guess. Yeah,
but
I honestly don't think I've ever seen another performance of his, so I have nothing to compare it to.
Omega Man, which is another post-apocalyptic kind of nightmare film that he was in, and Planet of the Apes.
That is him. Okay.
And Spartacus. Yeah, he's, you blew it up, you maniacs.
Okay.
You blew it all to hell. You get your damn hands off me, you dirty ape.
So he's got some famous, I mean.
Oh yeah, no, he got to deliver some big ones.
Yeah,
big lines. Omega Man is a bad adaptation of Richard Mathis's Last Man on Earth, or Last Man Alive, whatever. I Am Legend, actually, but sorry.
We were talking about the other day. Well, finish your thought, because this is kind of an off thought. Okay, well, we were talking about the other day how like the movie line, I think we've mentioned this on the podcast before, but the movie line becoming like a pop culture playground into the zeitgeist sort of thing. When's the last time that happened? that you can think of?
Oh, like when a line in a film enters the zeitgeist. I don't know. I'm old, so I'm not a part of the zeitgeist anymore.
So I was like, if I were to ask my nephews if there's any line from a movie that they quote on the playground, I don't think they would have one.
A movie?
I think it would be
like a movie? No.
That's right.
Some YouTuber.
It would all be memes and YouTube references. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's true.
Like
also,
the last one I could think of, and just because this is probably specific to like my group of people or the people that I hang out with, is "Help me, I'm poor." Help me, I'm poor.
I don't know what that.
We say that to each other all the time from Bridesmaids.
Oh, okay.
She goes, "Help me, I'm poor."
Yes, that's when she's on drugs and on the airplane, I think.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'd be interested. The audience has other lines that they think have like stuck over the.
But that's like an
10
inside
years.
joke meme for you. And
It
your
is,
friends.
but like, it's something that we say to each other, and I can't even think of anything in a small group of people that we do that with anymore.
No,
that breaks through.
My friends and I have like things we repeat to each. Actually, one of my friends has things he'll just repeat endlessly, and that are like inside jokes between us. Anyway, now I also want to say too is like when I said I'm old, I'm not part of the zeitgeist anymore. That was a joke because you can't not be part of the zeitgeist. I know that. The zeitgeist is the spirit of the times, and you're all in it.
Okay, thank you for clarifying.
Just wanted to be clear. So, right. So this movie, just like thematically, right? Like they all wear, first off, it's super hot. It's super duper hot.
Right.
Why is everybody wearing floor to ceiling polyester suits?
Yes, and Charlton Heston is moist, is the best way to describe it throughout this entire
Word doesn't bother
movie.
me.
Ugh.
Why does that word bother you?
Oh, no, not moist. Him being moist bothers me.
Yeah, he's a sweaty
the word
man.
doesn't really bother me.
I hate that meme. Oh,
That
it's a
moist
yucky
is a gross
word.
It makes you think of, gross things.
Okay.
You know what it is? It makes me think of when you've been outside just a little too long on a hot day and you're not like fully sweating, you're just like a little bit wet. I think it calls that the feeling up for people.
Okay. Sure.
And you go like sit down at a restaurant and you're just like, I'm just like not comfortable.
I love it.
So I think that's why people
That's when I'm at my most comfortable.
No. Ugh.
Yeah. I'm not a northern man.
I want to be bone dry.
Not me. Not me at all. He wears a neckerchief all throughout the movie.
All throughout.
So hot.
Absorb the sweat. Right?
That's the only possible thing I can think of. Yeah, exactly.
Like he gets it wet to keep himself cool
Sure.
for the first part of the day.
And then, but the clothing that they're wearing, right, is very much so like designed, I think, to hearken to the uniform of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, which would have just been happening, the students' revolution in China that came with Mao Zedong, because they wore stuff kind of just like that. I mean, the hat especially, that you see repeatedly throughout. And I think that there's got to be some commentary there on like, this is what communism will get you. Ironically, of course, fears of overpopulation led China to the one-child policy, which they are still paying for. What a catastrophe that turned out to be.
Throughout history, though, people are always wearing clothes that are too hot for what seems like possible to survive.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
It's not like not an uncommon thing.
Oh, I know that. I'm just saying, like, it's not. It's a specific uniform.
But you're saying the look.
It's a specific
like that. Yeah.
Pockets, color, hat, the shape of the hat. Like it is communist. I'm sure of it. And designed to hearken to to that. I'm sure that was a production design choice.
When did the policy in China start?
One child? Off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. We can Google that real fast. I'll bet late 70s, early 80s. I remember it was like a big deal. We discussed it when I was a kid. And
I constantly was under the understanding that women, like girls, just weren't allowed to be born in China. 1979.
79, yeah. I mean, that is like sort of the weird de facto result. Because
it is,
yeah.
yes. You would think like at some point during this, someone would realize that women now were very valuable. Though on the other hand, it's like if there's scarcity.
Didn't work out that way. They weren't valuable.
No.
I don't know what to tell you, ladies.
Well, they're missing them now because
but it was like a real cultural thing. That I guess they couldn't shake.
It remained in effect until 2015.
Yep, it was pretty recent.
When it was replaced by two-child policy.
That's right. Yeah.
Yikes! Which is still in effect.
Yeah, but I think I read that it was like not actually enforced.
Okay.
In reality, you can have 3 childs. I think that I had read that it wasn't really that enforced. I don't know. I could be mistaken on that.
Yeah, sure.
So, you know what? They could treat it like, oh, that'd be interesting. I'm not a hunter, but I do know that like in a lot of places where you do deer hunting, in order to catch a buck, because everybody wants the rack, they got to take a doe. And sometimes you got to do multiple does to trade in for a buck because of like population control. They could have an adverse, like you get one son, but as many daughters as you want.
Sure.
Got to have them, you know, you want 10 kids, go nuts. They could do. That's a gruesome thought, all of that. So,
yeah. I mean, it's not unreal though. So
there's 2 possibilities here, right? Like the movie is sexist. Because women in it we see are furniture. They come with the apartments.
And that's their only way out of the other alternative we see in the movie, which is being tethered to your child while you're dead on the street.
Yeah, just like absolutely nightmarish shit. And certainly I could accept that would be a thing.
Yeah, I can.
But the only thing?
Right. He also, though, as he's like looking at she is a rather large character, and we haven't even mentioned her, but Cheryl.
Yeah.
Cheryl is the name of the woman who is in the apartment, and throughout the movie, her and Thorne continue to have a relationship. The first time he meets her, he's like looking at her and is just like, "Oh, no bruises anywhere."
Yeah.
Wow. Like
doesn't slap you around, huh?
That's incredible.
Nice guy.
Yeah. That's very rare.
Yeah, he was always really nice to me.
And then the second time we meet her, she's got other women from the floor over, which we find out is against the rules.
Yes.
But she's kind of they're gathering, which is against the rules. And he's just explaining to her sort of the facts of the case and kind of questioning her. He doesn't even say it, though. They just go into the room and start undressing. No one says anything.
Actually, you are wrong. They go, he says, "Let's go back here." And then he says, "On the bed."
He just says on the bed.
Yes.
But I didn't even take that to mean in that moment. If I heard it, I thought he meant like sit on the bed, not we're going to have sex. Like the moment feels very like Ray and I were watching it. We're like, why are they undressing? And we're like, oh, they're just gonna have sex. Yeah. Like it's so assumed that
it's meaningless. Sex is meaningless for her, and she's available, and she likes him a little bit. So like, hey man, why not?
I don't even think it goes. Yeah, it's not even that far. It's like if he starts undressing, it's just like this is gonna happen. Like there's no question about it. And like he's the good guy in the movie.
Yes, and he's corrupt as hell. He is still corrupt as hell.
Her well.
He is still corrupt as hell. Like there's payoffs and there's graft and he's stealing and then there's like you know the death benefit when he's like that's gonna be tied up in court. I'm pretty sure that's what him and his police chief and like this other guy are splitting in that one scene in the office when he comes up with that black chip. Like they're just like stealing.
It's true, but for us, the audience, like he's the good guy.
He is the good guy.
The hero.
Yeah.
And then they have more of like an actual relationship and he's protective of her eventually. But when it comes to the end, he calls her kind of first to say more or less goodbye.
Yep.
And she says, like, basically, if you don't come intervene here, the next guy's going to move into this apartment and I'll be his. And he's like, good, stay with him. Yeah. Do that. Well, that's better for you.
There was like a brief moment before where she was like, we could run away. And he's like, fucking where? Yes. And he's like, all the cities are the same. And then she says, what about the country? He's like, you're not allowed in the country.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I missed that too.
And then she says, why? Which also kind of implies that like the furniture girls don't really get much of an education. Right. And he said, because there's good land there and they lock it up like fortresses, like waste management, like Soylent factories. And because we can't let people have the good land. Why? So there's a lot of crazy people who want to destroy everything we have.
I guess, yeah. So there's like this unknown outside world.
It's
maybe all the people are forced into the cities and there's actually
my question is the setting positing that in the world, like obviously anybody who has means, anybody who can create a living for themselves would be a man, or is it positing that in this setting being a furniture girl is an option, therefore that's what women are going to do. Their women are so silly and so lazy that like if you give them that as an option, why would they do anything else?
I think it's, for my interpretation is, in a world of lawlessness, Men will just
yeah.
use women. The other woman we see, though, there is
But it's not lawless because we know that there's 250 murders a day and he needs to solve them.
Not all of them, just this one.
No, he specifically is told, don't solve this. You got to solve those other 250 murders.
Yeah. But with a nod of like, that's impossible. It's never going to happen. We're overwhelmed.
Sure.
And so they're overwhelmed by crime. If they're dealing with 250 murders, they're certainly not trying to solve rape.
No. And this is a deal where she's not being raped,
Well, and the one woman that we do, the wife or girlfriend or roommate of the bodyguard,
also furniture.
Is furniture. Okay.
Yeah.
She's just there. She comes with his apartment as well.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So
I love too, before Thorne comes in and the music is playing and stuff, and you hear the crying baby. And
you always hear a crying baby when he's outside.
And then
always.
she turns down the volume. The crying baby is
in the apartment.
The crying baby is a recording.
He hears a crying baby in their apartment.
She is sitting on a chair eating strawberries out of a jar, and there's like I don't know, like soul music blasting and like crying baby you can hear, and like you as the audience think, oh, she's listening to music, eating this stuff in her silks, and her baby's crying in the next room, and then she turns down the volume on both. It's a cover.
Yeah, to make it sound like there's more people in there.
To make it sound like they're just like, I don't know, like she's a welfare queen. I don't know, like what was like in the the mindscape of the time, but like.
Well, because there's always, whenever he's outside of the apartment, like on the stairs or in that
babies are crying.
Area by the church, there's always the sound of babies crying. Yeah.
Of course there are. People keep reproducing. Look at how stupid these people are. They just keep fucking. Why won't they stop making babies?
Something I was going to say is then the CEO, the rich guy, the Soylent Green board member, who you have to assume in this society is one of the wealthiest people on the planet.
Absolutely.
Why the fuck is he living in a city? Why doesn't he have some chunk of land in the country?
How would this movie work?
Yeah, I guess, but...
I mean, yeah. I mean, and why is security so... Well, security is lax in that moment because... It has to be so that
right.
Yeah. It is interesting too. Is like a lot of the things weirdly add up. Like at first, before Furniture Girl is a thing, you're like, oh, she's gonna go do the shopping instead of sending someone out. Very hands-on for the lady of this house. And she is shopping in hell. She is down in like a chain link nightmare cage where you buy food from a pawn shop. But then you find out like she's not a fancy girl at all. No. She is a servant,
Well, in this, wherever they're going to buy food, has to live within the confines of this building.
Compound, yeah. Yeah, because they have they have a moat around them. That dude with the whatever he has to like cross the moat and hack his way up with the special crowbar.
Make footholds for himself.
That is a special crowbar to do that, to just like chunk out a bunch of concrete.
He's very taken with it when it's given to him.
Oh yeah, it's handmade. That's what he says. This is handmade. Just like some like dwarven smith, like I will make the finest crowbar known to man.
I guess too, if this guy's a board member and the powers that be at the Soylent Green Company want him dead, then they can gain access to his room.
Right.
Security. Well, and then his security is bought off by them. We do know that.
Right.
His bodyguard knew he was going to be killed.
Where does somebody like that get those $300 or $150 strawberries? That's the connection.
Exactly.
He gives the spoon to Saul, and Saul's like, strawberries, $150 a jar. And there's like a look of realization in the face of Heston at that moment, Thorne, where he's like, oh, I got it. I see what happened here.
Is there another movie in this genre that does this better?
Does what?
That you can think of?
People just are like, eating people?
Yeah, overpopulation, climate change.
It's funny. Like, I keep thinking that what this movie should have been, but it's a very different genre of film. But did you see Dredd? Mm-mm. It's the good version of the Judge Dredd movie. Judge Dredd is a comic book that takes place in Mega City 1. It's a British comic. It's been running for 10,000 years. And Judge Dredd is like, he's a cop, jury, and executioner, or judge, jury, executioner all in one. That's like the future, because like crime is so rampant, overpopulation is so rampant, and he's implacable is the word, I think. Yeah, he cannot be he's incorruptible. And they've done two movies, one with Carl Urban, good, one with Sylvester Stallone, not good, corny as fuck. And it does like an overpopulated nightmare future. But I also think, and this is like a problem for me, is that like Soylent Green is people.
Yeah, now what?
So what? Yeah. Like, I knew I was eating something. They were dead anyway. They weren't using that body.
And people are already rioting, like
Yeah.
So the thing we didn't say about Soylent Green is you can only pick it up on Tuesdays. It's in short supply. So you go to this place to pick up your Soylent Green every Tuesday, and generally it breaks out into a riot.
Yeah.
And that's where the scoopers come in. So is the idea that now that this information is out there, the riots will be so big they'll be unmanageable. But like, to what end? The population just wiping each other out.
Yeah, there's not going to be food without the Soylent Green.
Right.
Unless those farms are really great and the rich people are eating really well. But you can see that they're not, because the food that she has for the really rich guy is like a steak is special and like this piece of fucking like wilted celery garbage, you know?
Right.
So it's not like, it is true. They're not like hoarding the food. You know what I mean? Like it's bad for everybody.
Right. They don't give you some like, they are actually hoarding the food, and that's what he uncovered. Then you've got to.
Then you have a third act. You can save the world.
I do think that's why Saul just goes to be exterminated. There's no hope. Yeah. There's nothing. Yeah. It's worse than we thought. I'm done. This is the straw that broke the camel's back. It's not worth living here anymore. Right. I don't think we're supposed to hope for.
No, I don't know that a happy ending would be a good ending for this movie. I am just saying that gives you some place to go after you reveal that Soylent Green is people. The problem with this movie is that once we know that, you can't do anything because Soylent Green should be people in this setting. Like, they didn't need to make it a secret. They could have just told everybody, listen,
throughout the movie.
Yeah, like, it didn't need to be a secret. Like, I don't know what else you're going to eat if you guys don't eat. Well, you already are. Because realistically, these people would have been cannibalizing each other in the streets already. You know?
Right.
Like, hey, we took, that cannibalism that's all the rage? Well, what if it was nice? Yeah. I think that Soylent Green sells great in this setting.
Yeah, you start with Act 1 ends with Soylent Green as people, and then Act 2 is, but there's hope to fix it, and Act 3 is, no, there's not. We're fucked.
Right. Yeah, I just don't think that Soylent Green as people would freak people out in that setting.
Yeah.
It freaks out our audience, but this is one of those things, or it's supposed to, but this is like just one of those things where the setting doesn't hold water.
Well, that's why Hartman making joke sequels is funny. That's why that bit worked.
It's still people. Yeah, what else were we going to do? Yeah, exactly. We were going to eat the air. It's still people. Sorry. Yeah. There's nothing alive in the oceans. Turns out there's nothing alive in the oceans at all.
Something you say about movies. There is no false hope in this movie. Like it is, we're done. Society is over. It's done. We're eating each other.
Yep.
There's no way out.
Yep, exactly. And so as a cautionary tale about overpopulation and global warming, it's really sticking to its guns there.
Yeah, if they made this movie today, there would be vast farmlands that rich people are living on, and if only these people could get out of the cities and spread out into the vast farmlands, it would all be okay. Or it would be idiocracy. We just need to water the plants and everything will be fine.
Right. Well, and I don't want to get into it right now because we were going to make that a separate episode, but ultimately that is the reality for Logan's Run. Once they go outside, they find out like, oh, we didn't need to live like this. Right. They were keeping this a secret. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, let's
save that.
Wrap this one up and get into it. Yeah.
So on the whole, like, it's a weird, like, curiosity of a film. I think that maybe the most important thing about it is that, as I said before, it's the final performance of Edward G. Robinson, one of the great actors of the pre-code. And
which may have been a reason for its success, quite honestly.
Yeah, could have been.
People were going to go see his last performance.
Some people. I do wonder, like, in the common mind, like, oh, that guy who used to do gangster movies, like, did people, you know what I mean? Like, they didn't have an internet to build fan clubs on back in the 70s, you know?
Yeah, but then when there was, like, a big name, they were even bigger because we had so few of them breaking through, you know?
His career,
he would have had longtime fans that wanted to see his last movie.
Here's the deal with him. He gave a lot of money to anti-fascist stuff during World War II. Really outspoken critic of the Nazis, and I personally believe somewhat unrelated to that. It's very cynical to be like, and as a result of that, the powers that be called him in front of the HUAC. He wound up called up into the House Un-American Activities Committee and was really on the ropes career-wise as far as being blacklisted. In reality, he probably, like a lot of people, particularly people who liked working at Warner Brothers during the pre-code era, probably was like a far lefty, to some, what I mean? He probably was like a card-carrying member of the Communist Party, which, by the way, was a thing, which I feel like I brought this up in a recent episode that, like, by the way, being a communist during the Fourth International, like before that kind of fell apart and Lenin declared communism in one country, which fundamentally goes against the entire concept of a stateless, classless, society that was laid out in the plans for a communist utopia. Being a member of that did mean that, like, I am working directly with the party in Russia, and a lot of these people were, and so what ended up happening is he got called in front of the HUAC and he named names to get out from under that, and he wound up gray listed as a result. He couldn't really work at major studios after that, and so a lot of his career did kind of fall into disrepair because he was working what they would call Poverty Row movies, B movies, basically for the rest of his career. But like one of the names he named was Doug Trumbo, and they made a movie about Trumbo as like this what's the word I'm looking for here? Martyr, I guess, or like wrongfully accused, like blacklist guy. But like if you actually look into Doug Trumbo, he was an actual spy. That's not bullshit. So, you can have, I mean, and I think it's perfectly valid to have those sympathies. That's a perfectly valid position. But like at the same time, he's an actual spy. Like that's not, he was really actually doing that. And I can understand, the state responding the way it would, There
you go. Saul got killed off like our board member by the company.
Saul got killed off like
the actor.
Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, career-wise, right. Yeah, and I think that's in there to some extent, actually. Yeah. I think that also, so I don't know. I think that it's there was a comment that basically when I brought up the fact that like that's what it meant to be a communist in the 30s and 40s, somebody commented like it's a good thing. I forget what they said, but basically like whoosh, they just didn't listen to what I said, and I was like, no, that's what it means now. It meant something different back then. Where was I going with that? How did I get onto that?
I think you were just clarifying.
But I had a point. I did have a point. That it meant something different. I just wanted to. That's right. I was just saying that like he had been.
As people might think.
It was a good opportunity to talk about Edward G. If like you dirty rat, I'm gonna get you. That's Edward G. Robinson. That was
you dirty rat. I thought that was.
Nobody associates it with Cagney.
But it's not.
And he's got a great quote where he said, "I never said that."
He doesn't. It is said by this guy and something else.
I'm pretty sure he's the dirty rat guy. He's in Little Caesar.
Yes, right. Little Caesar.
Little Caesar was his big gangster movie, and I think that's where the dirty rat line or something very close to it comes from. And also, he was the one who was like, "Yeah, see, you got it. Muggsy's coming for you. See." He was like the guy who always delivered those kinds of lines.
Got it.
As opposed to
quite a legacy, yeah.
Yeah, like the stereotype of the gangster character from the gangster era of films is based around his performance. Are there other thoughts on this that we have?
No.
About
I think well, go ahead. I mean, I said no very quickly, but I'm sure
Greg, shut up. It's time to move on. No, I don't know. I guess like at
this point in the episode, not really.
I guess I wanted to talk about we talked about the movie, but like the reason that like all of this Malthusianism in it doesn't hold up is like because one, like I love when people say that like, oh, human beings are the only species that doesn't attain equilibrium with its environment. And like, first off, no, that's not true. Where did you get that?
You think that we do?
I think we haven't. And also,
you think we haven't?
I think we haven't. I think species equilibrium comes later because technology keeps allowing us to expand.
So you think that we will? Well, and that is the conclusion about Malthusian. What they didn't foresee is how we would grow the food supply with people, and like the counter to this theory is that actually like they show the graph right of population growing and food growing. I'll put it up so you're not using my hands, right?
Yeah.
Population is exponential and the food is linear.
Yep.
And they're like, well, what actually happens is population grows with food.
Yep.
Or food grows with population.
Kind of, yeah. I mean,
right? we solve the problem as they happen.
There was a point in the late 1800s or early 1900s when they had done all this math, and they were like, well, we need nitrogen to fertilize crops. There is X amount of nitrogen on Earth, right? X amount of nitrogen yields X yield in crop production. Population grows on this curve. This was like all this stuff that the whole world of science was freaking out about this. They're like, oh, okay, so we're going to run out of food in 4 years. Like 4 years. It was like crazy fast. Well, this scientist in Germany figured out how to extract nitrogen from the air, and suddenly we had unlimited fertilizer and we could grow an unlimited amount of food. He used that same technology to extract chlorine gas from the air and invent chemical warfare. But
good with the bad, the balance.
It's in all things.
Balance of magic.
It's nuance. It's nuance. Okay? So he saves the planet, but he kills it too.
Right. Thomas Malthus didn't know what he didn't know. He didn't know about refrigerators. He didn't know about Twinkies. He didn't know about Cheetos.
Didn't know about
and
Twinkies.
Here we are.
I love that. That's a good one. And also, like, we see now too that, like, actually we have declining birth rates, and that is a huge problem, you know, like, because people keep aging, and it takes X number of people to care for old people.
Who's going to grow your food?
Who's going to grow the food? Right. Yeah. Those people are still consuming, you know, so.
I understand the freak out. I understand all these things happening at once, and people are living longer and more babies are surviving and more people are having babies. Like, I understand the logic line.
Just like I understand why you freak out about communists in Hollywood. right? Yeah.
But you don't know what you don't know, which.
Well, the problem with the overpopulation thing is, who's over? Isn't there always an implicit, like... Well,
yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. It sets the stage for a lot, of nastiness.
Yeah.
Like, right?
Which population?
Right. It's the fear-mongering needed to say, you know, we really need to stop assisting poor people so they feel like they can have 10 to 15 babies. Yeah. Like, yes, always.
Yeah.
Don't give in to the fear. Don't give in to the dark side.
Right.
Just... Great message.
I agree.
Bring it back to Star Wars.
No,
always.
It's a good message. The
fear leads to the dark side.
It's but I freak out because, like, some of those things, they work their way into society as like a meme. Which, by the way, a meme is unit of cultural exchange. It doesn't mean internet joke.
Right.
And they become true, or truism, which actually is another thing where it's like, that's not true. It's a truism. And people don't really question them. And I think that it's very easy to let these things go unexamined, and just, like, you grow up, like a lot of people, like, grew up with the idea that, like, overpopulation is a problem. And then I still encounter people when I bring, like, well, I don't know when the last time this happens, but, like, oh, you don't think overpopulation is a problem? And it's like, wow, man, you just never did any examination on this thing that your dad said to you in 1987, you know?
But that's the crux of so many things, right?
Yeah.
Like, creating a fear and exploiting it is how politics works.
Advertising.
On both sides.
Yeah.
Advertising.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We're seeing it constantly right now.
Of course.
Always, but like, not right now, always.
Anyway, if the audience wants to look into it, they'll find out that overpopulation isn't real. Ba-dum-dum. There you go. I mean, it's exacerbated by, like, misguided environmentalism, like pushing back against nuclear power, which would have actually, I don't know, prevented climate change. If only we'd stuck that route.
Yeah.
Darn it. Oops. Yeah. Really screwed up that one.
A lot of people would have lost a lot of money if we went that way, I suppose.
Yes, actually, that is true. There was money from oil and gas to poison the well, so to speak, around nuclear power. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not about always, but in this case, we can say there was.
Oh, yeah. When something's going to come in, I mean...
That way leads you to thinking that the dude who invented the water-powered car got assassinated, which is not true. The water-powered car isn't real.
It's also, or that, like, we could cure cancer and we don't because there's an entire industry behind it.
Yeah. No, the person who cures cancer is going to be fucking rich. They're dying to do it, man. Trust me.
I guess. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. I could see a counter argument to that for sure.
I just...
There's already people fucking rich.
How many people work at the Soylent factory?
Like 12.
No, they like hundreds, right? Like how many people are driving the bodies there, right? So like it's the same problem. Like it generally speaking doesn't take that long for a conspiracy to come to light when there's a real conspiracy. And if it hasn't come to light in 50 years, it's probably not real. It's probably not. There's just too many people, you know. What's the expression?
Generally, I agree.
3 men can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. So
yeah, right, sure.
Anyway, all right, guys. I think that's way more than enough on this little piece of cinema.
So subscribe and like and tell your friends where they can hear the podcast. Don't
give in to the darkness.
Fear leads to the dark side every time.
Every time leads to hatred.
Don't fear your neighbors. Don't fear people that are different from you.
Baby, don't fear the Reaper.
Stay cool. Stay chill. We're all going to be fine.
Yep.
See you next week when we talk about Logan's Run on Midnight Local.
I think that'll be fun, though. All right. Bye-bye.
What will be fun?
All of us being fine. No, I was going to say Logan's Run. Logan's Run.
It's like, I think it'll be fine. The end.
It'll be fun.
All right. Bye.